Well, hello and welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today for our session, AI Search in 2026, Three Ways to Show Up and Stand Out. A quick couple housekeeping items before we dive in. If you have any questions at any point, feel free to drop them in the Q&A box. We'll be answering as many as we can at the end. And then anything in the chat we'll try to answer too, but it's better for Q&A to go in the Q&A spot. But the chat is open as well. And yes, this session is being recorded, so we'll send that out afterwards. Kaci, if you want to hit next slide.
Absolutely.
So let me introduce you to our local AI search expert, Kaci McBride. She is our Senior Director of Strategic Consulting here at SOCi, and she will be going through today's presentation with you. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kaci.
All right. Hi, everyone. Like I said, I see some familiar names. Excited to have you all here. If we haven't met yet, hi, I'm Kaci. Super excited to talk to you today about some really big themes that we're noticing as it pertains to AI search, and hopefully some tips and tricks that you all can take with you and apply to your business. So we have been talking relentlessly, I feel like, for the past couple months, even this past year, about this concept that search is fragmenting, it's evolving, it is no longer just in traditional search results. We have seen adoption and traffic from ChatGPT nearly triple over itself every single month since last February. We've seen an ungodly amount of search happen in social media channels now. We see networks like TikTok and Instagram picking up on this trend by providing reporting now around some of this search traffic. And so what's happening now is we can't just think about search as it pertains to Google. And we're now exploring, what are the similarities and what are some of the differences that we're seeing across these different channels, and what are the things that we have to pay attention to. So specifically with the lens on AI, in an AI study that our very own Damian Rollison completed here at SOCi, we analyzed businesses and essentially tried to understand how visible they were on these different channels, what they had in common, and then pull out some insights and some themes and some things that we're noticing. First and foremost, these are some pretty big stats. So we found that about 24% of the time, the brands in the study we conducted were appearing in Google for the local three pack. We found that 26% of the time, the brands were recommended by Perplexity, but then it gets a lot more competitive when we get into the world of Gemini and ChatGPT. That has a lot to do with real estate also. If you look at results in Gemini, in ChatGPT, and those interfaces, where you might find upwards of maybe 3 to 5 businesses being recommended. Sometimes ChatGPT may only give you 2, may only give you 3. The real estate is just a lot more intense. And so we do find a lot less frequency of brands getting into that recommendation spot in some of these LLMs. And actually, that was really prevalent in a lot of the data in the study that we conducted. So we found that the top 100 brands in our LVI study, which is coming very soon, super excited for all the content that we have planned around that. In the top 100 brands in our AI study, they only overlap 37% of the time, which suggested that AI thinks about these things a bit differently and stresses importance on some different factors when compared to traditional visibility in your SEO and kind of social space. So the 3 big themes that we're going to explore and talk about today is the theme of precision. So is the data accurate, consistent? Is it actionable? Can I trust it? The concept of authority. So is it the best choice among all of these available alternatives? Can I validate that this is the correct brand to surface? And then relevance. So does it meet the often highly specific needs of the customer conducting the search? Can we trust and understand that this brand is representative of whatever the associated topic was that was conducted in search? So let's hit on precision. AI gets its local truth from a lot of places. This is only a tiny snapshot. This isn't even considering all of the different sources from social or forums like Reddit or even like local PR and articles and things like that that get written about your brand in that space. But when we're looking at kind of the big three, right, the Yelp, Bing, Google, they are informing in a lot of different ways. So we know that Yelp is used to help inform Bing. We know that Yelp data and website data are often very closely associated if you're managing that data, but then they work upwards and inform other areas. So we find that Perplexity often favors brand website and is really crawling that content on website. It's also referencing Google search and maps to some degree. ChatGPT tends to get a lot of its information from Bing, with also a nod to Google, which I'll get on the next slide, kind of where it might pull some information from Google. Obviously, Gemini is powered by Google, and then Gemini powers AI mode in search, AI overviews. So there's kind of this web of associations and things even beyond this that we have to consider from a data accuracy standpoint if we want to appear in all of these different spaces. This was actually something that we shared a couple months ago on the SEO Juice. Shameless plug. It's another great monthly webinar that I would love to see you all at. But there was actually a study conducted that found that ChatGPT is relying on Google data to provide timely answers, primarily when it comes to review content. So we know that ChatGPT is scraping Google to be able to surface recommendations based on your star rating. Oh, I saw someone in the comments saying, join the juice, join the juice. Um, so we know that it's being referenced in this space. So it's really important to have your information as accurate as possible on Google if you also want a nod in ChatGPT, despite all kinds of other conversations happening that say, oh, well, Bing is informing ChatGPT. No, my friends, it's everywhere. And so what do we do about that? When we have to deal with so much scale, a lot of the brands that we work with have thousands upon thousands of locations. And it can be really hard to make sure that that data is accurate, particularly our friends in the franchise space, when you have franchise managers that have a certain level of independence on their listings, and that's totally valid. But there are certain elements of your listings that need to be accurate and need to be consistent. And it's not just your listings. You need to make sure that the hours of operation, your naming conventions, your address, phone, all of your primary information is accurate in your business listings, on your website, on your social media profiles, on anywhere that any question could even be asked about when are you open, where are you located, what are you near. That accuracy needs to be there because LLMs are checking all of those sources and they have the capacity to check all of those sources. And so it's important to make sure that you're covering your bases and really protecting yourselves and your presence across the web. But it can be really hard at scale. Like I said, you've got too many locations, you're dealing with who owns this data, you might be using too many tools, and you might feel like, I don't have enough time for this. And it's really easy to make some assumptions, right? So a lot of brands that I talk to that are still trying to like figure out their process, might say, you know what, it is decentralized. Each of these locations are managing it independently and search is evaluating it independently. Or any issues that I have are relevant to local. It doesn't necessarily add up. But that's really not true. AI is looking at all of your locations, forming an opinion about you. Are you consistent? Are you trustworthy? Are you guys keeping these things up to date? Is it accurate? If I can trust your brand as a whole, talking as the LLM here, then I can recommend you at the local level. So it's really not just subject to your one location in your one area. It's, are you trusted with your data across the web? And if so, and it's consistent, then yeah, I'll recommend you to Kaci McBride asking about, the best place to buy a coffee in Pittsburgh. Because that's just the way that it is able to kind of process bulk data and then make specific localized recommendations. And what can happen when your data is inaccurate is ChatGPT or Perplexity or these other LLMs may actually make certain assumptions. They might reflect data from a different source that you weren't thinking of. And then suddenly there's inaccuracy served up to your customers. And if it's aware of those inaccuracies, or if it gets challenged, or it discovers all of these inconsistencies and inaccuracies, it's not going to recommend your brand. And it is going to sour the perception of your brand that the LLM has in its ability to serve up to customers. So again, it's essentially deciding, is this consistent enough to trust? How accurate and complete is it? And then using that as a judgment to send out your brand to consumers. So, what to focus on when it comes to precision? Define what data and information must be kept accurate across all locations. Like I said, that should primarily be your name, address, phone. Your hours of operation are crucial, super important. And then you also might want to consider things like your services and attributes and things like that, because oftentimes queries in LLMs are very specific, right? They might be very concerned about handicap parking in some locations. And if it's inconsistent, if maybe it's only mentioned on your website, but it's not optimized in your business listing, the LLM doesn't know if it can trust what you're saying. And so, really, really crucial there. Be clear on who's responsible for those updates, local versus corporate. Like I said, this is a conversation that we have a lot, especially with franchisees. Um, there are certain elements of your listings that, in my opinion, should be corporate owned from a management perspective, from a data consistency perspective, just to really cover your bases and make sure you're safe. And then I would say for the things that are more maybe social driven, like Google Posts, for example, or photos, stuff like that, are usually good to then pass off to the local managers. And usually those are the more fun tasks that they probably want to be doing instead, anyways. Um, Decide, prioritize which issues to fix across every location. Look, you've got a lot. I get it. Like I said, I would say top priority is always make sure your hours are reflective is accurate. Always make sure your NAP is reflective is accurate. And then some of those other smaller details, like your services or attributes, can be kind of deprioritized if you've got bigger issues over here. And then align on rules and procedures for how accuracy is maintained over time. A lot of brands that we work with have internal systems that are really good at processing and feeding out this data. Next up, authority. So, authority is all about reducing risk and uncertainty. LLMs greatly favor public opinion. They greatly favor reviews. And they are not just looking at one space. They are looking at how you stack up, what people are saying and feeling about you across so many different elements of the web. So ratings and sentiment are insanely important. Your review volume and recency of those reviews, also very important. You might have a lot of reviews on your listing, but if nobody's saying anything about you in the past month, that's not good. Like I said, these LLMs have recency bias. So it's very important to have an active reputation management campaign. And then your response behavior, it's evaluating how you respond to customers. Is it timely? Is it providing context? Is it providing value back to the consumer to help answer certain questions or quell certain concerns? Or can LLMs use your response to help inform a lot of how it might make suggestions? And it's a lot more competitive when we talk about showing up in LLMs. So there's a certain threshold for being recommended. In Google, we used to say it was around that 4.0 is when you're going to get recommended for best. That scale's even gotten a bit higher. You really want all of your locations to be around a 4.2. Yelp, usually a bit more understanding. I feel like the audience on Yelp, usually people go to complain a lot of the time. And so that threshold usually is a bit lower to get recommended. But on ChatGPT, man, it's incredibly competitive. Like I said, there's a lot less real estate. We find that ChatGPT really won't recommend businesses unless they do have at least 4.4 stars. And so a really good kind of universal approval rating across the board to get in that space. So, a couple things to focus on when it comes to authority. Define what acceptable customer experience looks like across all locations. Establish clear ownership of rules and responsibility. Who's responsible for review responses? Or do you have great tech to help you with those review responses? Shameless plug. Set expectations for how quickly reviews should be responded to. Google has recommended for a very long time that the standard should be 24 to 48 hours. Consumers expect it to be 24 to 48 hours. Anything past that seems inauthentic really to consumers. Consumers are expecting you now to be in this space and respond to them quickly. And then have a review generation strategy. I don't think enough brands really prioritize capturing reviews. One of my favorite ways to always make sure you get reviews is good old-fashioned QR codes. I feel like consumers maybe used to be a little adverse to QR codes, but then COVID happened, and suddenly every menu that we ever need to use anywhere is generated by a QR code. And so adoption on those have really increased. And as a result, I think having QR codes in your receipts, at your registers, just in different elements, maybe your email campaigns, make it easy for customers to leave reviews for you. And then this last one is all about relevance. So prove that your brand is everywhere, that you're active, that you should be in this space about this topic. So relevance is proof of life. It is proof that you are here, you are in this space, and you should be in this space for whatever the associated topic is that you want to be discovered for. But if you're not posting, it's going to hurt you. If you haven't made any updates to your listings, it's going to hurt you. And if you're not responding to reviews, it's going to hurt you because it makes it really hard to validate that you should be appearing for something. Um, like I said, studies find LLMs do have a recency bias. LLMs want to see you frequently posting on a topic. They want to see you talking about it. They want to see you interacting with the community, and really validating that you should be there in that space. If you want to be known for something, it's not enough anymore to put some keywords on a local landing page. You need an FAQ, you need a response strategy in Reddit, you need to respond to reviews, you need to be posting about it on social media. You need to make video content. We're essentially being required to prove that this is what we should be associated with if we want to appear for that specific topic in LLMs. So there's a couple different things that AI is going to look for. First and foremost, it's going to look for fresh, targeted content. So is the content current? Is it location specific? Is it topic specific? It's going to look for responsiveness. Does the brand respond when customers engage with it? That's not just in review response. That's also in engagements on social media. Are you interacting with your consumers? Are you active? Are you live there on the topics that they're talking to you about? Cross-platform validation, like I said, is huge. Where is this brand? What is it known for? Are there Reddit threads talking about you for a specific topic? If you are the Dick's Sporting Goods of the world, and I always use them as an example. I used to work there. Are there Reddit threads out there about your batting cages or your hockey skate sharpening services, or I don't know, people looking to get a tune-up for something or break in their baseball gloves? If people aren't talking about that, if there's not mentions or mutual mentions of these services across the web and not just on your website, it's really hard for LLMs to validate that this is the true consumer experience at your location. Um, Also, we want to make sure that you have clear answers. FAQs are so valuable on your website, guys. And I think some really great strategies to get behind a brand side FAQ. So like on your main primary domain, having an FAQ landing page that has all of those general questions and answers. But then also, if you think about your local business landing pages, so the page that is linked to your local business profiles, get some location specific FAQs in there. Get content that is really important to those local consumers. Like things about the attributes. Like, do you guys offer X, Y, and Z in this location? Do you have handicap parking? The things that will really influence people's decisions should be in FAQ content on your local landing pages. And then last, user validation. So do users note experiencing the optimization target? You might think that you had some fancy new product launch or something really great that you're trying to target in your content, but do any users validate that you actually have this product or service? Have they experienced it firsthand? Are they talking about it? You really want to make sure that your consumers are talking about you in a lot of different spaces. And honestly, local PR can help with that as well. So what I mean by that is we find that LLMs really like local blogs, local content. If there are local newspapers talking about a grand opening or some type of event or things like that, or talking about a business in its community, a lot of times LLMs will favor things like that as well. Um, I I want to stress here too. I feel like marketers might think they're doing certain things, but then we have to consider how AI actually interprets that action. So I mentioned this a little bit, but we mention the keywords that we want to appear for. It's maybe in our title tags, it's in our descriptions, we think we're doing that, but maybe AI is not seeing additional validation signals to verify that the brand can do X. LLMs really favor customer experience and customer accounts of what happened at your brand and at your location. You might think that some of your locations are very active when in reality it might not be good enough for the LLMs. Are there long periods of silence? Are you being current and active and posting? We posted about the subject on social media. Um, but AI might not actually see references to this topic on the website or on other online forums. It's all about cross-platform validation in this world. And then you might think, oh, we just had a great launch campaign for a new product or service and it went really well. But maybe you guys didn't cover your bases to be verified as a relevant spot for this product or service. And again, that comes down to really kind of investing in some of those local citations and Reddit and social media. And kind of, if you want to say something, kind of knowing all of those different mediums and spaces to say it to truly get picked up. And so, what you should focus on when it comes to authority, define what active looks like for your business across all locations. One good way to do this too is kind of take a look at your competitors. It doesn't need to be quantitatively, it can just be qualitatively. Pull them up. What are they doing on social? What are they doing in business listings? What are they doing on their website? And maybe they're all doing a terrible job. And that's great. Then you have a good baseline to just do better than they are. But you might be able to pick up on some things that are making them successful compared to strategies or things that maybe you hadn't thought of. Cover your bases across the marketing ecosystem for the queries and associations you want to be known for. I talk about this a lot on the SEO Juice, where it's not okay anymore for marketing teams to be siloed. The days of your SEO team, your social media team, your paid media team, your marketing and PR, that's gone. Even your customer care teams, right? Like they all need to be aligned and cohesive, and they all need to be marching towards the same optimization goals, because the reality is that they all greatly impact one another, and then together they all impact LLMs. So it's like your social strategy impacts your SEO strategy. Your SEO strategy greatly impacts the balance of, maybe informing your marketing strategy or your page strategy. And then it's like realizing that cohesive relationship that all of these different teams have are the reason that you are or are not going to show up in an LLM. You should also decide kind of where and how often locations should show signs of activity. Like I said, you can use your competitors as a baseline, but also, kind of determine what good looks like for you and your org, and continuously try to make improvements on frequency in that regard. And then align on how it's maintained over time, not just during campaigns. I can't stress this enough. I feel like a lot of brands we work with get really fixated on these like campaign launches and things that they have pulsing throughout the year. And a lot of that kind of always on strategy might suffer. That always on strategy is crucial because your consumers are always on. The amount of time that we spend on our phones alone is insane. And so, really making sure that we are building that relationship with our customer across these different spaces on an ongoing basis is going to be really crucial to your success. So top three things I would say to remember, and then I'm going to take a look at the Q&A and some of the chat. Um, so first and foremost, AI recommends well-reviewed and consumer-approved brands. AI favors consistency across the board, and AI is craving validations and additional sources of truth to feed recommendations to customers. And we are actually going to expand a bit more on what AI is actually recommending and why, who's winning in this space, and insights from our upcoming 2026 LVI audit. Super excited for this one. We're going to dig in even deeper to talk about some of the correlations and trends across these brands, and then really, help you guys hone in on the insights that you can pull away and apply in your business. With that, I know we have a couple minutes, so I am going to kind of skim through and see if there are some good questions that I can answer. Um, let's see. Okay. I see one. It says, does AI judge the amount of content, i.e., too many or too few posts a week? Yes, absolutely. So, AI wants to see active content and fresh content. What that can mean can vary a little bit by channel. So let's think about it this way from a SEO strategy perspective. You might want to be updating the copy on your local business pages anywhere from once a month to once a quarter. You'll want to be posting a Google post at least once a week. If we're looking at social media strategies, you want to be posting multiple times a week. Um, and it's really good to have a mix of both a national and a local strategy. What I mean by that is oftentimes brand really just have national social strategies and then they'll waterfall those posts down. It's not good enough in this world anymore. You have to have hyper local social strategies at play, and they need to be frequently posting multiple times a week and interacting with their customers and their market, with your brand. I know that that can be scary as corporate teams, kind of turning over that power to them, but that frequency and that relevancy and that hyper local mention is just so crucial, to the success of all of your programs, but especially your social program. Um, we are basically at time. I see somebody asked if we have if they'll have access to this recording after. Danielle, that's a good question for you.
Yes, we will be sending that out
Okay.
after. So stay tuned for that.
Awesome. With that, we are exactly at time. But thank you guys so much for joining us today. Would love to see you all at the SEO Juice. Please attend this upcoming webinar. We'll dig in even deeper. This is a topic that will follow us all through 2026. But yeah, from all of us here at SOCi, thanks for joining us.